Welcome to this evening's forum for candidates for the Washington County Board of Education. I'm Richard Wilson, President of the League of Women Voters of Washington County. The League is a nonpartisan organization whose mission is to empower voters and support informed participation in our democracy. We do not support or oppose candidates or parties. All candidates who will appear on the primary ballot for the Board of Education race were invited to participate in tonight's forum and several times, and respond to our nonpartisan voters guide, which will be published later this month. The League of Women Voters was formed soon after the passage of the 19th Amendment, specifically to educate voters on matters of public policy. Education is still a key part of the League's mission to make democracy work. And yes, men are welcome. In 2 weeks, we will be back in this space to host a forum for the candidates running for the Board of County Commissioners. We also thank our friends here at the library for making this excellent facility available to the League. The other key sponsor of this evening's forum that has been working with the League to make this forum possible is the Hagerstown Area Religious Council, or HARC. One of the key belief statements that guides the work of HARC in our community is the belief in nurturing the unlimited potential of every child, and given that this is an election year, who we elect to public office can change the opportunities for children and families. Thus, our shared goal for this evening is education. We thank the 5 candidates that have agreed to participate this evening.
They called your name?
Each of you will be given the same total time allotment, though we will use a random arrangement of who gets a question first. With each question we pose, you may use part of your time to address a previous question, but we trust that you will use your time wisely, as generally we will be giving you just 1 minute to compose your response. With each question we pose, I will tell you how much time you have, and the TV screen you see before you will count down the time a lot. When you have 15 minutes left, seconds left rather, the screen will turn yellow, and when your time is expired, the screen will turn red. However, we will allow you to complete your thought if you're in the middle of a sentence. We thank Melanie Fouché for operating our timing technology this evening. During the first half of our forum, volunteers from HARC and the League will be circulating index cards to audience members who wish to submit additional questions, and around 7 p.m., we will observe a 5-minute rest break. After our intermission, our team of volunteers, led by Debbie Williams, the League's vice presidents, will give me the questions that I need to ask in our second half. This evening's format is named a forum rather than a debate. We ask their candidates to address their responses to the questions we pose and not to other candidates. Each candidate's responses should stand on their own, so we ask you to talk about your views and not those of other candidates. In a word, we expect mutual respect. We also ask that the audience be respectful of the views expressed here this evening, and we ask that there be no applause and other disruptions so that we can cover as much ground as possible. Our proceedings are being recorded by HARC staff, and the video will be posted on both the HARC website and then on that of the League of Women Voters in a few days. And with those housekeeping announcements out of the way, let us begin our forum. I got forgiveness. I have a parking voucher and I've got a friend at the time of this. I don't know if that's going to work for you guys though. Now, we did seat people in alphabetical order, but that doesn't mean we're going to call on you in that order. We are going to begin this evening by giving each of you 2 minutes to introduce yourselves And please indicate how your experience has prepared you to serve on the Board of Education and how you would approach the responsibilities of this role. And we will start with Mrs. Merchant Spickler.
Good evening. Oh, I forgot. I was going to use my teacher voice, but you know.
We got a sound guy. So.
I know.
Good evening. I'm Robin Merchant Spickler. I'm a retired teacher of Washington County, 44 years, mostly kindergarten, and I have served on numerous committees with the Board of Education as well as the WCTA Teachers Association. I am born and raised a Hagerstonian, lived here all my life. All my children attend Washington County. My one child, I shouldn't say all my kids, but all my kids are my kids. But my daughter attended all the Washington County public schools. I have 3 grandsons. 2 are in the Washington County public school system at this time. Third one should be coming in next year. I am running for the Washington County Board of Ed because I have experience in the classroom and I know what it is to be in the teacher's role and how to advocate for help and advocate for our students, advocate for our teachers. I also am passionate about what I do, and anybody can tell you I give 100% plus. I also am, I have commitment, because once I take something on, I will fulfill it to the highest degree that I can. And I'm also have a personal interest, like I said, in wanting to do what is best for our students, for our teachers, and all the stakeholders of Washington County. I think this is a very important time. I think our school board needs to be listening a little more and be transparent for things that are coming up. So that's one of the reasons I'm hoping to get a vote and get in there and help turn things around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. And Fanny, you can restart that. There you go. Ms. Chester, 2 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Alina Chester. I'm a mom of 3 little ones. I have a 2, 4, and 7-year-old. So the 7-year-old is currently in Washington County Public Schools, and the other 2 will be following along shortly. My goal in running is completely to help the schools be better for my own young kids. I think if you can get in while they're little, you can actually make the most impact, and for the benefit of every child in the school district. My background is I'm a school finance professional, so I work with principals and schools and colleges as well across the country, and I report to 18 different school boards. I've seen school boards that function very well and some that have all kinds of problems. And I see that the school boards that work, they listen, they set the tone, you know, they're the leaders of the district in that way, and they should be, when they're listening, they should be directing staff to kind of review those areas of concern that are brought up to them. So I'd like to do that for our county, and entirely my goal here is just educational outcomes and using my background in finance to help the schools, because I know we kind of do have a budget situation right now, and I've been doing some research and digging in and have some ideas I'd love to share.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. And Fanny, you can reset that. There you go. Mr. Pickford.
All right. It's on. Is it on?
No, it's on standby.
You'd think I would know how to use a microphone. Hi, everybody. So glad you're here. My name is Peter Bickford. I grew up in Washington County, went to Winter Street School, Western Heights, and North High. I also served 2 terms on the Board of Education. I'm very excited to be running again because obviously there's still work to be done. Some of the things I was proudest of during our 2 terms on the board was it was really exciting to be able to have universal preschool, pre-K. That was a major challenge when we came in because we didn't have a lot of money. We still don't, but we figured out how to, it turns out we had room in our schools, and we also had major behavior issues. So one of the things that we came up with was to offer universal preschool so that kids got into the school system sooner, and that way they were that much more prepared. The amazing thing about that was that when I first came in, we had, I think, the second lowest kindergarten readiness scores in the state. It was very embarrassing. That has jumped to, I think last check, we were 4th from the top, and they could literally track those kids that went through universal preschool. That part of the reason we were able to rise so high. That's, I mean, if you're running for public office and you want to do things, that's like, we actually got something done. So I think the major challenges ahead, obviously, costs right now. Teachers are going into this next budget cycle where they're going to see higher health costs, and they're not going to necessarily get a great raise to cover that. So in my mind, their pay is going down. And so I want to also try to find some solutions to that, collaborate with the county commissioners to hopefully get some more funding from them. Thank you.
Well, you used your 2 minutes really well. Right. Next, we have Mr. Lowen.
All right, let me apologize ahead of time and say I'm only gonna do this one time. Yeah, okay, so let me apologize ahead of time and say I'm only gonna do this one time. But the issues going on are actually very deep. To say that this election is different than others is true, so I'm gonna go over time and definitely take it away from me from other questions. But if the Religious Council isn't the area to delve into these issues, nowhere is. So let me read this. So what's happening in our schools, and we'll get into more detail obviously, is that in our country the middle class is shrinking. Ultimately, it all stems from that. For all of our history, up until my children's generation, America's middle class has never shrank. Actually, one way to describe the speed of growth in America's standard of living that is unique in human history and has made us the #1 destination for immigration is that we are the society with the largest middle class to ever exist. It is not just America's experience with the middle class either. You can go country by country, rank them by economic strength, and see that the size of their middle class falls in line with their economic strength. History is clear. The middle class is the most powerful social system ever created. It is not the warrior cultures of the Spartans and the samurai, as my 20-year-old self would have insisted. It is not the unprecedented society-wide organization of the Roman Empire. It is not the speed of cultural assimilation of the caliphates. It is what came out of Europe in the 1400s, the middle class. Therefore, the shrinking of the middle class that has become obvious to all of us is our #1 problem. We still have the largest middle class on earth, but we are trending lower, and it's happening faster. In all of human history, there are only 5 things associated with an above-average sized middle class. 1 is a government that is either a constitutional republic with federalism, which is America, or a parliamentary democracy, which is Europe and some Southeast Asian countries. 3rd is capitalism. 4th is a universal education for children that has critical thinking as its mission. 5th is that the only societies that have ever achieved all those other criteria are Judeo-Christian legal system-based societies.
You can save part of that to add on to other questions.
Okay, fair enough.
What I did not perhaps make clear at the beginning was that we will, after our 2-minute segments here, you will have a series of 1-minute questions, but you can use your time creatively. I would encourage you to answer the question that's posed, but you can whip through that and go back to something that sparked your interest earlier. And Mr. Lowen, it looks like you've got more material to share with us. It's up to you how you choose to do it. It is up to the audience to figure out who of these people is going to make us a good school member. So, finally, with the 2-minute introduction question, Ms. Murray.
Good evening. My name is Linda Murray. I wanted to say that I have been a longtime advocate of Washington County Public Schools. When my children started school, I was one of those homeroom moms. I was the mom that went on field trips. I was on the PTA. I was president of the PTA. I was in the band boosters. And I kept going. Then I worked in an elementary school for 26 years in special education. I retired in 2016, and in 2017 I was appointed to fill a seat on the board and have been on the Board of Education ever since. I'm still volunteering in schools. I helped Springfield Band when my grandson was there. I even marched in the parade because the teacher needed help. And that's what people do, you help each other. And so I'm committed to our schools and to a good education for all students. I'm running for another term because I believe that we need a little change at the Board of Ed. We need to focus on what the teachers need. I believe that they need more than a 1% raise. If you're going to raise their insurance by 10%, then they're not getting a raise, they're getting a cut in pay. These teachers work so hard with these kids every single day. Everybody works hard with these kids, bus drivers, teachers, everybody that works with kids. And so I think we need to treat them accordingly. And that's one of the things that I want to do if I get elected.
All right, thank you, Ms. Murray. Now we move into the section where we're going to allow you 1 minute for your responses. And we will wait for Fanny to cue up the other timer. All right, you want to reset that to the full time. And I'm going to address this first question for 1 minute to Mr. Bigford. What is the role of the elected school board member in building staff morale at all levels?
What is the role of building, say it one more time?
What is the role of the elected school board member in building staff morale at all levels?
So the two big roles for the Board of Education is to pick a superintendent. That person handles all operations. And then also to set the budget for the year as well as set policies. So I think as far as morale goes, certainly when you can report back that we want to give them a pay raise that they deserve, I think goes a long way for morale. Also, you know, in my time on the board, we really didn't have to make any cuts. We really added staff. We added guidance counselors to every school. And I think that's another way to help their morale is because staff, teachers need more support. And so the fact that we were able to do guidance counselors in every school as well as to add more paraprofessionals to help students or teachers and specific students, that goes a long way too, to show that you're there and you're listening to them and you're helping.
Thank you, Mr. Bigford. Ms. Chester.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bigford covered it very well. And when it comes to some of the policies that would be the role of the school board to implement, one of those things that would probably help with morale right now, I know there's a lot of behavior problems at the schools, and I was looking at our code of student conduct, and it's solid, but it could use some more, how do I say it, some more clear implementation steps and some more directives. And so if you can create a school environment where everybody across the board, the leaders and the teachers, know what exactly they need to do to maintain that code of student conduct and follow behavior situations, I think that would be one of the things that would help improve morale in the county right now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Chester. Moving on to another question. This will be first directed to Mr. Lowen. How will you work to strengthen the relationship between parents, staff, and the district?
I'll get back to that. So the only societies that have ever achieved those other criteria are Judeo-Christian legal system-based societies, or what is called Western civilization for short. The problem of America's shrinking middle class is we have allowed ourselves to be pushed off of our Judeo-Christian legal system foundation. Since the 1990s, our government has drifted from operating as a constitutional republic to increasingly operating under socialist principles. We have, to a large extent, already moved from being a capitalist economy to being an oligopolist economy. We have allowed our public schools and universities to drift away from critical thinking to teaching what academics call critical theory. But the real issue boils down to the fact that we have increasingly stopped passing on to our children knowledge of the Judeo-Christian legal system. Because the understanding of a constitutional republic, capitalism, and critical thinking is, for reasons I can't fully explain, most readily understood through the perspective of the Judeo-Christian legal system. The middle class can grow again. I've seen it. I grew up starting a career and a family in America's middle class heavy society, but I have also lived through every step of what changed that preceded the shrinking of the middle class.
Mr. Lloyd? We'll look forward to hearing your ideas about how to strengthen the relationship between parents and staff in the district at another time. Ms. Merchant-Spiegler, please.
I feel that the strengthening of communication and being transparent from the beginning, I think having a strong superintendent that's gonna field all the questions and be there to develop everything that's necessary, and the board supporting a new superintendent and getting communications out so it's quite clear where everything is heading. I feel that there needs to be safe schools. Everybody needs to feel safe about being in school, no matter if you're the teacher, or if you're the custodian, if you're a child. I think that the communication is right on and it needs to be out there. I feel that fighting for what teachers need so that they can be comfortable and not go elsewhere to work.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merchant-Spiegler. The next question is addressed to Ms. Murray. First, how do you plan to handle pressure from special interest groups or opposing viewpoints on school issues?
Well, in my years on the school board, I think I've learned how to do that. People are always going to have a different opinion, and it's welcome. Everybody's opinion is welcome. Sometimes they might have a good idea, or just because they have a different thought doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to express it. And so I appreciate people that come to the board meetings and give us their opinions. Lots of times they'll email us. Now, if they email the whole board, the board president has to respond. If they email me directly, then I am allowed to respond. And if you email the board for help, we have to send it to the superintendent, but he has been so good about getting it to the right person and having that person call the parent, call whoever needs help. And so we've had a good system, I think, but it can always be better.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Chester?
I'm so sorry. What was the question? We keep
I
changing
will.
questions. What's going on?
As you get your mic on, we'll repeat the question. How do you plan to handle pressure from special interest groups or opposing viewpoints on school issues?
So we should always be listening to everybody and taking feedback, but I would certainly strongly oppose any political pressure to remove diversity, equity, or inclusiveness from our educational materials, and just any changes that are being proposed to curriculum should always be based on solid evidence and research. So if people are coming to us with, ideas and they're not based on solid evidence, then we would take that for what it is.
All right, thank you very much. Moving to another question. Mr. Bickford, you will get this one first. How are you going to work with the Board of County Commissioners to get adequate funding for our educational needs?
That's the game, isn't it? Because as many of you know, we don't have the power, kind of glad, we don't have the power to tax. So we get to say, hey, county commissioners, can you give us more money? And the challenge has always been that because they're prescribed by the state law to give us the same amount of money as last year, that tends to be what they do. So how do you get them to give more? You have to go to them with a good case. luckily you have to have relationships with them. I will say our current superintendent did a fantastic job when he came in of really building strong relationships with the county commissioners. And he got 2 votes for more funding. He didn't quite get that 3rd vote, but that takes relationships. I think we're gonna see some change in this upcoming election. I think education's gonna be a major issue with that, so it'll be interesting to see if we can collaborate, how we can collaborate more.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Ms. Merchant-Spickler.
I totally agree with Peter. I think the county commissioners need to be aware of things earlier, not at the last minute. And it's really hard when you're doing a budget and you're making cuts at the board to accommodate things, and then you're still short. And the county commissioner we go to and plead the case that, you know, we have made those cuts, and these are as far as we can go, but we need that support. You know, the taxpayer money needs to be coming to the public schools and being used, and early intervention, quote, quote, has been very effective, but having that strong person that comes forth, and the relationship with the board superintendent these last years is good, and he's very thorough in getting through things, but once again, it needs to be early, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be done often.
Thank you, Ms. Merchant-Spickler. Moving to another question. This one comes first to Ms. Murray. If faced with a budget shortfall, what criteria would you use to cut programs, and what would you protect to ensure equitable funding?
Well, we just went through this in the budget cycle. We had a program, it's called Academy of Blended Learning, for children 1st through 5th grade, 5 teachers, and 47 students who are at home on computers all day. It's costing us over $500,000 just for that program. I wanted to close the program, I wanted to stop it for elementary, because I didn't feel it was cost effective, and I didn't think that young children should be on screens all day. It's been proven that that is not good for them. But that the majority of the board wanted to keep it, and so I was outvoted. And there were some other changes that I wanted to make where we could pull some money from here and there, but the majority rules, and so, you know, that's the way it goes. Once
Ms. Murray,
you're done.
got the red screen. Mr. Lowen.
All right, I think I can do both. However, I have also seen how quickly and easily critical thinking returns to schools once those who benefit from taking critical thinking away from children get kicked out of the school districts. And that's what it's about. Who's going to control the school districts? The critical thinkers or the others? Now, the budget shortfall question is a great question, because where's the budget shortfall coming from? We have one, we're headed towards one, but do we really? Because one thing I'll point out is that there's really only one thing I'm aware of that both the Governor Hogan and Governor Moore agree on. I only know of one, and is that they both dislike the blueprint. Now, what is the blueprint? That is the primary thing that causes all of this funding increases that we're always behind by. It's the spending that the blueprint calls for, which is why we're saying that we're in a budget deficit. If you actually do what Governor Moore and Governor Hogan agree on, there's no budget shortfall.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen, and that brings us to our mid-program break. We're going to take 5 minutes at this point. You can use the time as you wish, and when we're 2 minutes closer, I will say, let's get back in our seats. During the break, one of our candidates asked if they could have the privilege of having the question repeated without it counting against their precious seconds, and the answer to that is yes, and I apologize for not making that clear. If you want the question repeated, please ask me to do so, and Fanny will hold off just for a second. I might repeat the question for you. We begin the second half of our program by resuming our 1 second, the 1 minute
New York Times.
time allotment. And we start with Mr. Bickford. What is your plan to reduce overcrowding in Washington County classrooms? And what timeline do you believe is realistic for meaningful change?
Man, that's a good, I should ask you to repeat the question again. But, so overcrowding in our schools, well, certain schools are overcrowded at this point, and one of the things, the dreaded things we hate to do is have portables. But the other reality in Washington County is other schools have a lot of room, but there's not necessarily the appetite for redistricting. So as you know, we had the major decision. Our previous superintendent wanted us to examine whether we should close Hancock and have the kids go to Clear Spring, because there would still be room left over in Clear Spring even if all the kids from Hancock went there. In the end, we listened to the public and decided not to close Hancock, and I still stand by that decision. So I know now there's going to be some redistricting going on, because we are starting to, we're going to be opening another elementary school. But as far as a timeline, I can't really say. Like, it usually depends on the school construction schedule and the appetite for redistricting.
Ms. Chester, the same question.
I'm gonna go back to an earlier question. I wanted to talk about budget because that's what I know the best. So the cost of living increase that teachers received was 1%. What does that actually mean in the budget? It's $1.8 million. The actual cost of living increase over this past year in Western Maryland was 3.1%. So what's the difference we're trying to make up? We're trying to find 3.6 million out of a $384 million school budget. 3.6 by itself sounds like a lot, but percentage-wise, we're not talking about that much. One of the areas I think the school district desperately needs to be looking into is our medical insurance coverage. Not the cost to the employees, which is a separate problem, but the cost to the employer, the school district. We're spending $60 million on that, which is 18% of our budget. That is, from what I see around the country, double the cost.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. The next question goes, Mr. Lowen, to you first. How will you ensure that class sizes become manageable enough for teachers to build relationships and provide individualized support?
Great question, and absolutely one of the most important questions that can be asked. So class size is vitally important, both for the sanity of the teacher, but also for the quality of the education. Now, staff will tell you that studies show, over and over again they'll say this, and it is a true statement, that studies show that class size does not affect academic performance. And they'll insist on that, and that's the justification for these classes of 30 and sometimes even plus children. What I would say to that, because one of the things is I actually am in the classroom. It's adult education, but I am in the classroom. I deal with this issue personally. What it is that you can go through the material. So if you're just trying to hit benchmark tests which are overdone, then yeah, you can go through the material and hit certain numbers almost no matter what the size is. But if you want to go in depth, if you want to teach critical thinking, if you want to be able to have the time to spend some time with each student going just a little bit deeper with that one extra question, that only happens through smaller class sizes, regardless of what the studies technically say.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Ms. Merchant-Spickler?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. How will you ensure that class sizes become manageable enough for teachers to build relationships and provide individualized support?
That's a tough question, because in my 44 years of teaching in Washington County, that comes and goes year after year after year. And some years, depending on the district you're in and the population, you have small numbers. Other times you have an overabundant, and there's really, a struggle to get assistance and special education services met. And it's gonna have to be, there is the new school being built, which will close 2 small schools. And in the future, there's 4 more small schools that'll be closed and combined. So redistricting is gonna happen, and whether that will alleviate some classroom sizes, that's a possibility. I don't know how to personally do that. It's just something that district by district, neighborhood by neighborhood, the income, the outcome, and you get what you get. I don't know the answer, sorry.
Thank you very much. The next question goes to you first, Ms. Murray. What steps can the Board of Education take to attract and retain certified teachers?
One of the things that we have to do is pay them what they're worth. That is a problem. Starting teachers get a great salary, but then you get into that middle bubble and you start to see other counties pay more. And we have to try to retain our teachers to stay here. And so we have to make it worth their while. Raising the insurance 10% and not giving them a proper raise was not a good idea. And the reason they say they had to raise the insurance is because one drug, one of the GLP drugs, was so expensive that it put us in a lot of debt. And now we have to recoup that debt. So, I don't know what the answer is there. We need to look at maybe another program, maybe another health program. We need to do something because teachers should not have to do without.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Chester?
What I've noticed is that teachers stay, teachers know they're not gonna get paid a lot. They know that going in. They stay for a great environment and a great principal. So ensuring that our schools have a great environment. There are things, for example, a lot of our schools have these half walls. Miami-Dade had that in the 70s and they were walled up by the 80s. What are we doing with these half walls? Put up the walls in the schools, so that there's noise control. And then for part of it, investing in the facilities can honestly make a great difference for the environment of the teachers. And then having great principals, so not moving around duds, but letting them move on and making sure that we have the best principals, and working with our superintendent, of course, that's their role, but encouraging the superintendent to ensure that our principals are creating an excellent workplace.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. Mr. Bickford, the next question comes to you first. What is your approach to handling requests to remove books or change curriculum materials?
Well, there's a whole process that's in place that has been time tested. I would say that in the last election, we had a few people that came up and challenged books and read materials out loud that, and I don't think I think now that they're in office, they haven't removed any of those books. So I was sort of surprised by that because I thought there would be an actual review, but I don't think that's happened. But honestly, there's a review process that's pretty thorough. I was pretty impressed with it. And so when somebody wants to request for a book to be reviewed and possibly be removed, there's a process to do it. Part of that involves parents, which is important. And as far as curriculum, we have a whole curriculum committee, so there's a whole process that goes through with that. And we also have parents and staff and teachers on that committee as well. And then the board is the ultimate, takes the recommendation or not.
Thank you, Mr. Pickford. Ms. Merchant-Spickler?
I know there is a process, and it's not just somebody saying, I want this book off the shelf. I don't like it, it's not for my kid. Who am I to judge what parents, what is good for your student or your child versus mine? I'm hoping everybody would be open-minded And if you're doing your job as a parent, you have led your children into the direction of choosing the appropriate books and the appropriate materials. Once again, there were people who ran on that about banning books. They are in office and not one book has ever been requested. They have not requested. There has been nothing filled out at the board, and no books have been taken off the shelves or banned. And so once again, it's a personal issue. I think everybody should have their children aware of what's going on and, directed them to make good choices.
Thank you, Ms. Pershing-Spickler. Our next question goes first to Ms. Murray. How do candidates propose that we find a balance between the freedom of speech protected by the First Amendment and the desire of parents and teachers who seek to keep political strife out of classrooms?
I don't think in my 26 years we have ever had political strife in classrooms. The teachers I never knew where teachers stood politically. They did not bring that into the classroom. They taught the curriculum. They taught the Constitution. They taught the Civil War. They taught the things that were in the curriculum. They taught history. They didn't bring their values or their opinions into the classroom. So I really don't think that's a problem.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Go ahead and reset that to, there you go. Mr. Lowen.
I'll just go back and touch on a previous question because I think it gets to a broader point. I'm not trying to answer that question, but make the broader point, which is about the books, right? So the books, there's specific books being talked about and what it is, these books that parents have accused of being pornographic. Now, I had dinner once with several people who were on the committee from the Frederick County Public Schools who were okay with these exact same books. And what their rationale was is that when you look at the pornography, what it is, it's really part of the story. It's not the intention, the main intent is not pornography. It is part of a larger story. Now, the reason I want to bring it up is because this is kind of the thought process. Here is the issue with the books. Parents read the books, you can go online and you can hear what they read. There's no doubt you'll 100% agree. The issue is that it changes the brain. It's how it affects children. And the fact that we're making decisions where we're not even taking into consideration how it affects known ways that it affects children, I think that explains a lot about where the decisions are coming from that are affecting our children, and people saying, where's this insanity coming from? In all areas. Thank you.
Next question goes first to Mr. Bickford. What is the right balance of classroom technology like iPads and physical textbooks in our classrooms?
Yeah, I'm sort of changing my thinking on this because I was really proud of the fact that Washington County was the first county to have one-to-one devices, meaning every child got their own laptop. At the time it was iPads, and I thought that was a real, we could brag about that to the rest of the state, that we figured out how to do it. And honestly, it set us up really well for COVID, because when kids had to go home, they had devices. My wife is a teacher in Frederick County. Let me tell you, they scrambled to find laptops and devices for the kids. But I do agree that we are starting to see that screen time is really impacting the children's brains. And so I think we're at a point, the pendulum was here, we did a lot with technology, and we're starting to come back, and teachers are starting to find other ways. There's software that's super helpful when it comes to teaching math, science, and reading, but at the same time, we need to do things that don't necessarily require screens as well.
Thank you, Mr. Pickford. Ms. Chester?
LAUSD was the first school district just about 2 weeks ago to limit screen time in schools, especially for the younger grades. I think that's going to set a trend for the rest of the country, and we should be looking at that as well, setting screen time limits within the classroom and within the school day, especially for grades K through 4, K through 5. But when I bring this to the principals I work with, because I'm encouraging them, they're telling me, I want to buy more devices. I'm like, are you sure? they'll tell me, well, the teachers are relying on the online learning tools to teach because they're not comfortable with the material. So the investment then has to be in professional development. If you're going to take away some of the online resources, then you have to be investing in professional development for the teachers. And ultimately, I think that's a better long-term investment for the schools.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. Mr. Lowen, this question comes to you first. How will you ensure that all students have access to high-quality education regardless of their background or ability?
So that's something that we actually do quite well. So I myself am a special education student in two ways. One is I was severely dyslexic, failed first grade, and yet at that time, because of the lack of resources, no one even realized I was dyslexic until third grade. Well, I should have been third grade, I was in second grade, and not able to eat lunch because I couldn't write my name down, right? So we've come a long, long way. I actually don't think that that's a huge issue. Now, can we always improve? Of course. And for example, one really interesting area of possible improvement is what's called Landon's puzzle pieces for autistic children. You know, and I happen to know the individual that's the founder of the program. One of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. I think that that's like one of those areas where we could make there could be a real big bang for the buck. But in general, as a general rule, we actually do a great job. Honestly, the IEP program, save for future comments, but in some ways it may even go too far. That's how much we've invested in special education.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Ms. Merchant-Spiegler.
I think you have to meet the students where they are, regardless of any background. Having taught kindergarten, I didn't have any prior knowledge of my students till they were in my classroom. And I had to diversify for my students, and I had to meet them where they were. So providing numerous opportunities for everybody that's on an equal, you know, nobody's on an equal level balance when that happens, but you need to meet those students where they are, and you need to offer, and the budget has to be there. There has to be money. There has to be the people who are comfortable to meet those needs of those students, because they're important, and we want to provide for those students to be productive out in our community once they have graduated and moved on. So it's a budget thing, it's advocating for what the students need and meeting their needs.
Thank you, Ms. Merchant-Spiegler. The next question comes to you first, Ms. Murray. How would you improve student behavior, reduce bullying, and manage discipline while keeping our schools safe?
Washington County Public Schools does have programs, anti-bullying programs. They try to teach students to speak respectfully, to do the right thing. They have programs, they get rewards and things. And that doesn't always help if the children see that kind of behavior at home, because they're not taught how to respect one another. And let's face it, in today's world, some top leaders don't know how to respect other people, so they see it all the time. It's very disheartening because we work hard to teach kids not to bully. We want our schools to be safe. We want our teachers to have students that are engaged and listening, not acting out. So there's a lot of things that we can do. I know the superintendent has put together some great programs to keep kids safe. I'm not finished, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Chester.
Sorry, this goes back to a little what I was speaking earlier about progressive discipline. I think we could look at making sure that it's implemented faithfully across the county, and so everyone understands the expectations, and making sure that the culture of the school is one of respect. And there's actually some great SEL, social emotional learning curriculums that can be kind of implemented, or you could try different ones in different schools, see what works, like Leader in Me is a wonderful one. I'm blinking on the other name, but we could look at implementing some like respect-based behavior programs in our schools as well.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. Our next question comes to you first, Mr. Pickford. What is your position on policies regarding cell phone usage, such as phones away for the day?
I'm actually in support of it. It was something that just our superintendent, Dr. Savine, started to enforce after I was off the board. But that was one of the biggest complaints we got, was that kids were on their cell phones. And that also, one of the other things you heard is teachers had the ability to say, to take cell phones away and have kids collect cell phones, but other teachers wouldn't, and so it was hard because there wasn't a consistency there. So I'm glad that they did set a policy. And so I think where we're at is, I like the fact that kids can bring their phones to school, because the reason I got my daughter a phone was so that I could communicate with her when it was time to pick her up. But at the same time, I'm all for getting them out of the classroom if they're gonna be a disruption. And so if there's a way to keep them, and so kids can get them back, I think that's great.
Thank you, Mr. Pickford. Ms. Merchant-Spiegler?
That's very interesting conversation, because that was a conversation that was just held Tuesday night at the school board meeting. And there's multiple suggestions, multiple programs, multiple ways of thinking of it. I do believe that cell phones are important for those special students who need them for communication. I don't think, once again, everybody's on the same level when it comes to what cell phone use they need. It also needs to be reflected back in the classroom so that the teachers are all on the same playing field, and it's expected. You know, they went from pouches to the lockers to no phones whatsoever. So it is a touchy situation at this time. I don't think there's a concrete answer. I think it needs to be individualized, especially for special needs children who need to communicate, and children who are before school or after school. It's a question to be debated.
Thank you, Ms. Merchant-Spiegler. Our next question goes first to Ms. Murray. What is your plan to support educator mental wellness?
I think that we have some very good programs in our schools. We have good counselors. We have teachers that listen to their kids, know them well, and communicate well. We have a lot of, like I said, a lot of different programs. I'm still thinking about the cell phones. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to jump in here on that. Kids should be allowed to have their cell phones in school. It's important. Should they be on them all the time? Absolutely not. When you're in that classroom, you have that phone put away. Bottom line. But before school, after school, at lunchtime, if you need to communicate with your parent, I think it's important. Some kids have diabetes and they use their phone to monitor their blood sugar. My grandson has something called POTS. I don't know whether it's a syndrome, and he gets where he can pass out, and you know, he might have to tell somebody, call somebody, I don't know, check his blood pressure.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Mr. Lowen?
Yep, so, educator mental health. Educator mental health. So teachers, I think, tell us all the time exactly what it is. And what they're saying is that the work environment is torturous. So let me give you a scenario to understand what teachers are going through. So violent students, and I mean chronically violent students. I'm not talking about bullies and all that, I'm talking about chronically violent students. They will come back to class with chips and a soda from the principal's office after having committed violence, not a fight, violence. And think about this. They know the kid's coming back and that door's gonna close, and everyone is in the class with this kid who needs help. There's help available. We know how to help this kid. We can't solve all their problems in life, but we can help them. We refuse to do it because we refuse to use the programs that are available and have success. And then everyone is just trapped in there with the kid until they explode again. think of that mental health issues. That's what they talk about at school board meetings.
Before I pose the next question, I'm going to call for the audience questions from the back so that I'll be prepared. Got one more question on my list. And that question is going to go to Mr. Bickford. What are the literacy challenges students face and how would you address them?
Well, we've gone through a major literacy challenge where I think they found that one of the basically beliefs and curriculums that they invested in wasn't necessarily working very well, and there's tons of great stories about that. So they've switched now back to the science of reading, essentially, which I think we're getting back into using phonics to teach, which I think is important. I will say that literacy, I think we have pretty strong literacy programs. If you look at our elementary school, you see fantastic teachers. So it's a challenge. It's something we need to make sure we stay on top of. But at the same time, I think Washington County tends to, that is one of the focuses that has continued. And I'm glad to see that this sort of national shift has gotten away from some of the silly thinking in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Ms. Chester.
Same question?
Same question. Would you like me to repeat?
No, I'm with you on the science of reading, but I do think, I was just talking with the head of the libraries, and we do have a wonderful partnership with the libraries, so maybe just encouraging real actual books and less of the online use in the younger grades, especially when that reading is so critical. And then also making sure that we have enough intervention support in the schools, so pull out especially as they get to the older grades, if they are still not at grade level reading, then they're gonna fall behind in every other aspect. So making sure that you have reading coaches, maybe in every school or shared as needed, and interventionists that can pull out those kids that especially need the support.
It's too bad we can't allow you to carry your unused seconds forward. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
You can do whatever you want. You're the guy on the mic.
She's got the button though.
All right. The next question goes to you, Mr. Lowen. How would you approach the ongoing challenges of maintaining, updating, and replacing aging school facilities?
Sure. So the, you gotta do the work. Is what it boils down to. So for that, there's an expense budget. It's got its own separate expense budget, an entirely different process. Yes, you can go to the county commissioners and you can ask for more money, and when it's necessary, we have to, right? That's what a school board member is supposed to do, in large part, is make the case. But there is something about the budget, and we asked a number of questions earlier I didn't get to, but our state is in a chronic deficit, massive. We were 14 months ago, we were the 13th highest tax and fee state in America. We're now the 7th. Next year, when the tax and fee increases, we're gonna go to the 5th. We're still in a massive deficit. How can we be increasing our taxes to levels higher than everywhere else, and we're in deficits? So, and it was just announced a few weeks ago that now the city of Hagerstown is in permanent deficits. The county commissioners announced that in 2 years, they're now gonna be drawn down into permanent deficits. We do have to be aware of this issue because it is affecting everyone's life negatively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lowen. Ms. Merchants-Bickler?
Maintaining and updating the schools in this county, because is hard because there are a lot of older buildings. There are open space schools that have portable walls, and then there are brand new schools that have technology out the wazoo. It is hard, and it's something that the board looks at, and they check every line, everything that they can to save money to then put back into maintaining buildings. That's why they're proposing the closings of these couple elementary schools, because they are very they're costly right now because they are outdated. So they are combining schools to save that cost. Is it the best answer right now? Who's to know, because these were put on the block before COVID, and then COVID hit and they were put to the side. So I don't really know.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merchant-Spickler. The next question goes first to you, Ms. Murray. What role should schools play in protecting student access to education and maintaining trust with families during situations that affect students' sense of safety or stability?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, it's under the category heading of ICE and school shootings.
Okay.
That may help.
I had a talk with our current superintendent because I was worried, and I had people telling me that they didn't want to send their kids to school. They were afraid they'd be scooped up at the bus stop and they'd never see them again. So I called the superintendent and I said, this is what I'm hearing. What can you tell me? He said, I have spoken to the person that is in charge of Washington County, and he has assured me that he will not be scooping up any children at bus stops. He will not be coming into any of our schools. And also, if their parents are arrested and taken away, that they will let the school system know so that we can work with the families. I don't know what else we can do. It's, you know, the county says they have a right to be here. The state says they don't. It's a very difficult situation. So the school board does not want them in our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Chester?
With regards to ICE, we really can only follow the law and ensure that all of our teachers are aware of the most that they can do to protect their students without also, you know, putting themselves in harm's way. I did see that the teachers union put out a very helpful pamphlet. I didn't actually see anything from the school district putting out anything telling the teachers what to do. Maybe I just couldn't find it. But for the school safety in the school shooting environment that we live in, I think we should be looking into Department of Justice grants for school hardening. The schools around here honestly are, like, there's a lot with very low fences or no fences, and the money right now in our federal government is being directed to the military and Department of Justice. So that's where we should be looking for the money, because they do still have grants that we could be seeking out for our schools to harden them, and without, you know, using our state or local funds.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. Our next question comes to you first, Mr. Bickford. How would you ensure teachers and school staff have a meaningful voice in decisions that affect classrooms, students, and school culture?
Well, I think right now, many of the decisions, there is a structure in place where there's many of the decisions are made in committee structures, and so we have teacher representatives, staff representatives. I mean, every committee that I saw that came through that we had to approve, we always were very mindful that it had an equal amount of people that knew what they were talking about, which would be teachers and staff, as well as also parents. So I think there is that in place right now. It's important. The weird thing about it when you get on the school board is there's this dynamic of you have to negotiate, and it's very odd because, you know, we all get along with the teachers, and then suddenly you're negotiating with them. So that was a learning curve, but I do think that the more both sides are at the table, and they do talk constantly, and I think the more you can listen to them and also just listen to individual teachers, that's gonna help me when it comes to make the decision about whether to approve the idea that they're presenting, which is usually a contract.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Ms. Merchant-Spickler?
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. How would you ensure teachers and school staff have a meaningful voice in decisions that affect classrooms, students, and school culture?
Once again, being transparent and the communication and constant contact with everybody involved, whether it's the teachers, the students, the parents, the community, and hearings, have interest groups. Also make sure that there are people within these groups and these committees that have experience, that can add some more into making sure that we do have the culture and embrace everybody where they are, where they have come from, and learn from everybody to help increase that voice of everybody and being reasonable about where you're going with things, and that you just can't, it's not a cookie cutter thing, and everybody needs to be there on the same playing field, and the students need to be first. And so the outcomes should reflect those. Our teachers, we need those input because they're on the front line, and then taking back everything and developing a plan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merchant-Spickler. Our final question goes first to you, Ms. Murray. How would you ensure students from different schools and communities across Washington County have fair access to advanced academic, arts, and career pathway opportunities?
I think that we have a lot of schools, middle schools and high schools, that have so many different opportunities. And most of the time, the parents have to provide, if you don't go to that school, your parents have to provide transportation. And that's a barrier to some students. So I think we need to work on that a little bit. But for the most part, we haven't had a problem with most parents being able to transport their children. Some children do go to that school. That is their home school. So that doesn't present a problem. But we have various programs. We have an art school in the middle school at Western Heights. We have science and technology in Boonesboro, I think, or Williamsport. I mean, there's so many. I would have to write them down to remember them all. But everybody thinks it's just Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. Well, it's not. We have.
Okay. You stopped yourself there, it sounded like. Mr. Lowen.
Yeah, we have great programs there. I mean, there are dozens of programs, and my kids participate in that program. They just went to the home high school. They were bused over to where the programs were. It was great. Basically what it is that we are adequately funding those programs, and we also, despite the need for improvements, we also do very much fund special education. It's everyone in between. It's, let's just call them the average students or the students with behavioral issues. Those are the ones that are being left behind dramatically, and it's showing up in the dramatic decrease in our academic scores. And I just want to say also about the budget, because it's such a big issue. So 3 years ago, when it was first announced with the blueprint, I said in a meeting, and this is all public record, I'm not saying anything that actually isn't verifiable, I said this is going to overtake the entire budget. That was 3 years ago. 2 years ago I said, hey, it's actually now going to get worse and worse and worse with record fee increases last year. I actually said pensions are going to start to get cut. 2 months later they were. I literally predicted it. This is how obvious the damage is. This is how obvious it is. Thank you.
Now, Fanny is going to attempt to close that timer and open the 2-minute timer. But she's got it down now because look at that. She did it before, so we can do it again. Take a stretch, I need one. In our final segment, we are going to extend our thanks to each of you because we had more audience questions than we could get to. Many of the audience questions were duplicates and we were able to put them together. But it's moving on towards 7:30. We thought we might be here till 8 o'clock, but I did not create enough spaces on this chart to assure that everybody would get equal time. So I can't flex in that direction exactly. But we do, let me get this right. We thank you for your thoughtful responses this evening to our questions. In conclusion, please share with our audience why voters in Washington County should cast their ballot for you in the upcoming primary election. You will have 2 minutes for this response, and we will begin with Ms. Merchant Speckler.
I'm running because I am experienced, I'm committed, and I'm invested. I stand by those 3 words. I have experience being in the classroom, I have been a parent, I'm a grandparent, and I have degrees to help me make good decisions. I have been on numerous committees at the school board. I've also been committees with the WCTA. I'm involved in the community. I sing with the National Christian Choir. I sing with Hagerstown Core Arts. I sing at church. I am involved. I belong to ADK and other organizations. I bring knowledge of how to work with other people. I bring knowledge of being transparent. I can collaborate. I can take and listen and then make good decisions. I also want to be able to see that Washington County continues in that upper growth, because we are trendsetters and we need to stay there. And I just love this county. I would not want to go anywhere else. I've lived here all my life. I have family that have moved down south where it's warmer. I love this county. My heart, my soul, my life, my passion is here in this county, and I want to give back 100% plus, and I want to be there. I want to be there for the children, the students, especially my colleagues as teachers who are still in there, and I can do the best for them and everybody that's a stakeholder for Washington County.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merchant Speckler. Ms. Chester?
I think in my everyday role, I work to bridge the gap between finance and understanding that piece of it and educators. So I'd like for you to help me bring that experience to the board, and also a little bit of a fresh outsider perspective, looking at what's happening around the country and bringing those ideas into our county as well. I also dig into budget, so I do know what questions need to be asked and where resources should best be directed to prioritize educational outcomes above all else, because that is our role as the school board. I also really like working with other people, and I think there's a real opportunity for the school board to be working in tandem more closely with the Board of County Commissioners and the City Council of Hagerstown and local businesses to create mutual goals for our community, so that we can kind of create a cohesive vision for our students from pre-K all the way through having a career in our county, and keeping our best and brightest in our county as well, because from what I hear, they sometimes leave because the opportunities aren't necessarily here. So we want to have our Board of County Commissioners and our City Council be creating jobs, and then we want our schools to be working for a vision of those, having our students be prepared for the jobs that we want to have in our county. And so that's what I'd like to bring to the school board.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chester. Mr. Bickford?
This is a great time to go through my chicken scratch here to see answers that I would have loved to have given with other questions. Talking with relationships with the teachers, one of the things I wanted to point out that I liked about the negotiations process when it would come time to negotiate with the different associations, they never had unreasonable requests. They never, it just really, most of the time it was about planning time for teachers. They all want more of it. And then they, of course, we all want to get a raise. I mean, especially now. So I do think we need to fight harder, especially now in this economy, to get them more money. Security in schools, one of the things we were able to do, working with the county commissioners at the time, they didn't necessarily want to give us money towards salaries because they'd have to come up with it again the following year and continue to raise it, but we were able to get them to fund security vestibules in all of our schools. I was really proud of the fact that our schools were pretty much locked tight. We were the first in the state that really were able to get all of our buildings. If you go to a school now, it's kind of a pain because you got to go sit in a vestibule, you got to talk through a piece of glass to get to an appointment, but that's all about keeping kids safe, so I was happy with that. Also, I love your idea of federal grants. There are amazing people in the grants office at the administration who are always looking for money, and when I was on, we were definitely looking into some of those grants and even taking advantage of some of them. Some of that they keep behind closed doors because it involves security. So, but that is happening. One of the things that I'm really proud of in Washington County is that I call it Project Monday. If a kid graduates on a Friday, they need to have a plan on a Monday. And I would agree that if you have special needs, you're probably going to have a plan on that Monday. If you had a passion for something, whether it's carpentry or the arts, you had a plan on that Monday. But what I would agree is it's those people in between that still need that special attention. So I hope I can be part of making that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mr. Lowen.
Well, thank you for having me here. This was great. I guess some of the roles that I bring, I'm a financial advisor. So with the financial aspect of things, there's that. I like, as I said, adult education, but I understand that, I live it. A parent whose kids got a phenomenal education through Washington County Public Schools, and also someone who has special education through learning disabilities. I mentioned two, also behavioral issues. In other words, the issues that we talk about in school, I lived, right? And I also have the record to show it. I mean, I mentioned that I made predictions at school board meetings, but it's an actual factual statement. I literally have said things at school board meetings where I said, this is what's gonna happen next. No one else was saying it. Every single one of them happened. I have a 100% success rate because education isn't that complicated. So if it's being complicated, it's being made complicated artificially. Okay, before things started going bad in 2012. In 2011, according to the Department of Education, we were 31 points above the national average. Now we're 4 points below the national average. 2011, our average SAT score, 1492, now it's 1,000. That's basically, we are teaching about a third less to our students. That's not done by accident. And there's suffering occurring as a result, literal suffering occurring as a result. Dramatic, things need to change dramatically, and I'll even solve all the budget issues. This is how easy it is. Since Blueprint was put in effect, central office staff, meaning people who are not facing students, 23% increase in funding. If you just reduce that over the last 4 years, most everything the teachers are asking for right now, taken care of. You want to take care of everything else, facilities as well. Since the 80s, we went from about 75% all student facing to now less than 50. During that entire time, our academic performance dropped nationally. Let's go back to the old standards. Everything taken care of, no problems. It's that simple. If it's more complicated than that, it's artificial.
So we're moving on to Ms. Murray.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Please share with our audience why voters in Washington County should cast their ballot for you in the upcoming primary election. You will have 2 minutes for this response. We're trying to get out. Ms. Murray.
First of all, I want to thank you for having us. This is a very important thing to do, to let the voters know who is running and what we stand for. When I retired from elementary school, working in an elementary school, I thought, what am I going to do next? I'm an advocate for education, but I'm not going to work here anymore. And one of the teachers, who I love dearly, Sarah Dillo, said to me, well, Mrs. Murray, one day we might all be working for you. Well, now that's not the case, because we only have one employee, and that's the superintendent. We hire a good superintendent to run the school system. But I ran for board and wasn't elected the first time, but then was appointed and have been elected ever since. And then I met Melissa Williams. She was one of the best board members you would have ever met. And she mentored me and made me into a very good board member, I think. And so I have a very strong work ethic. I serve as a liaison to several boards in Washington County as well as the state. I pride myself on my attendance and my ability to communicate with WCPS employees, having been one myself for 26 years. If re-elected to serve another term on the school board, my three main priorities would be to work with the new Board of County Commissioners to find ways to support the growing needs of our system, to advocate for adequate funding that would provide competitive salaries to attract new staff and retain our current staff members, and to seek out funding for new schools to replace our aging schools to help with overcrowding. And I think my time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. So, now is the appropriate time to say thank you. We thank these individuals for prospectively putting themselves forward in this way of public service, especially valuable because we hold our kids very close. And the Board of Education handles our kids. They become parents for part of our day. We encourage the rest of you to really stay engaged. Our next forum is in 2 weeks, this right here, with the Board of County Commissioners. We have some questions tonight that probably will flip from the Board of Education into the Board of County Commissioners forum. We will also have a meet and greet for both Board of Education candidates and Board of County Commissioners candidates on the 28th of this month, May, at the Town Hall in Hancock. We were going to have some forums in Hancock, but calendars didn't cooperate with us. This month, a little bit later, we will begin having printed voters' guides put out by the League of Women Voters. And within a few days, the vote411.org website will be open, and you will be able to see candidate responses from some of the individuals that couldn't make it this evening. If you want to compare them to folk you've heard from this evening, that resource will be available to you. So thank you again for your time and your commitment to being good, well-informed voters. Have a good evening.